So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Hello, dear friends, and welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show, where we share innovative thoughts and explore deepening truth in support of the path to unity and enlightenment. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour, we'll be looking at the evolving brain and neuroscience. As we embrace evolution, all four aspects of the human being, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, must remain in balance for us to maintain health. With the pressure of increasing frequencies bombarding the planet and everything on it, including us, any place we have resistance will be slower to adapt. This resistance sets up an imbalance between those four aspects, as the restricted area will evolve at a slower rate than the other three. One arena of this imbalance is becoming obvious is the human brain. We all have routines, subroutines, and compartments in our neurological pathways that, while serving in the past, are becoming increasingly cumbersome. The problem is people tend to be resistant to change. To change involves chaos, leaving our comfort zone, reconsidering our position. Is there a way to reorganize the brain to meet the new challenges of today? What new information coming from neuroscience research can prove helpful in this process? With us this hour to explore the fascinating topics of evolution, neuroscience, and the human brain is Susan Weinschenk. Susan is a Ph.D. in psychology and is the chief behavioral scientist and CEO at the Team W, Inc., as well as an adjunct professor at the University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point. She consults with Fortune 1000 companies, startups, governments, and nonprofits, writes her own blog, a column for Psychology Today online. Susan's area of expertise is brain and behavioral science, applied to design of products, services, experiences, and human interactions. Her website is theteamw.com. That's theteamw.com. Susan, thanks for joining us on Mission Evolution.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
How did you become interested in human behavior?
Oh, I think I've been interested in human behavior my whole life. You know, when I was really young, we moved around a lot. I moved 35 times during my first 30 years of being in this life. And I think when you move around a lot like that and you are faced with, you know, as a little kid, and you're faced with the whole thing of making friends, right? And all of that, I just found that I became someone who studies human behavior and trying to figure out why people do what they do. You know, why are there these cliques at school versus those cliques, and what do I need to do if I want to have a friend, and all of that. I really think that's where it comes from. But I've always been interested in what makes people tick and why we are the way we are.
How much of human behavior do you think is by choice, and how much is simply programmed knee-jerk reactions?
Oh, such a great question. You know, we might not be able to separate those two things. I think a lot of the times we think we're doing things by choice, but actually we're doing just automatic reactions. On the other hand, it's really possible to, in some ways, retrain or reprogram your brain to not always react automatically. So I think those two things really go hand in hand.
I agree with you. And I think that's part of our evolutionary process is to take the reins back from our programming, isn't it?
Well, I don't know that we can totally escape our programming, but I think we have probably a lot more flexibility in there than we sometimes think.
Where does the programming come from?
I'm not a biologist by training, but because I'm a psychologist by training, but I do study that interaction between psychology and biology. My personal opinion, everything comes from, I think DNA is running the show. That's what I like to say. Our DNA is running the show.
So we inherit a lot of our behaviors from our lineage.
It's interesting. DNA and the effects it has on our behavior is much more flexible than we tend to think. I think we have this idea that, you're born with, you have DNA, you have genetics, you have your genes, and that's what you're born with, and that's just the way it is. And that's true about some things like, eye color, let's say, right? But we now know that genes can get switched on and off a lot, depending on the term that's used, in medicine and biology is depending on the environment, right? Which is a really large term, which means not only, literally the environment, like the air you're breathing and so on, but also just what happens to you. And a lot of that, it turns out, especially with some of the new research on, for instance, mindfulness meditation, a lot of that you actually do control, or at least, I don't know if control is the right word, but you can affect. So we know, for instance, that people who are trained in mindfulness meditation, some of their gene markers that would predispose them to this kind of illness or that kind of illness, those can get turned on and off just because you are meditating. So I think it's a lot more flexible than we think.
That's the good news, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Have we learned to control each other through these program behaviors?
I think I think it's pretty easy, unfortunately, to manipulate other people. I do. I mean, I think it's going to come out sounding negative, and I don't necessarily mean it this way, but the whole world of advertising, the whole world of marketing. And I say that with some reluctance because a lot of my clients that I do work for are marketing and advertising people. But, that whole idea is that we can manipulate people. And maybe manipulate is not the best word because that's such a negative word. But, even this idea that you can, I don't know if you've heard the term nudge, that's in marketing and behavioral science circles, that's, we use the term nudging, meaning we're getting you to do something that's good for you, like eat healthier or exercise more. And therefore, because it's good for you, it's not manipulative, but you know what? It still is, right?
Splitting hairs here, aren't we, right?
But it is really, I mean, it's unfortunately really easy to influence people to do something or not do something, to think a certain way or not think a certain way.
How can we as individuals evolve beyond this vulnerability to manipulation and exploitation?
It's hard. It's really hard. And sometimes because I wrote a book called How to Get People to Do Stuff, and I've studied all of the different methods that we use to influence or manipulate each other. And sometimes people say to me, oh, well, you wrote the book and you understand everything that people are doing, so that means you're not susceptible to it, right? And it's like,
Wrong.
well,
Yeah.
no, I know, I after the fact, I know more that I've been susceptible. I don't know if it prevents it. I think it's really difficult. And I think that, a lot of that is, I talked about the flexibility of our brain and the flexibility of our behavior. And then there are parts of it that are really resistant to flexibility and to change, that really, our programming is very strong. And actually, interestingly enough, I think our programming is strong for good reason. I think that a lot of the things that, if you really go and look at the core of, why do we do the things we do, a lot of it has evolved to protect us, right? When you are walking in the woods and you see something and you jump in alarm, right? Because you think it's a snake or, a scorpion or something, right? And it turns out it's just a stick. But you jumped because you are trying to protect yourself from dying, right? So I think that, although we can sometimes get very negative about our automatic reactions, we have to understand, they sometimes do have a purpose. What happens, especially in the modern day world, is that we get stuck in these loops. I mean, part of the certain stress diseases that we have is because we keep ourselves on alert all the time, right? And instead of just being going on alert and having adrenaline running through our bodies because we saw something we think was a snake, we have it all the time because we're tense at work. And so that is not particularly good for us. So I think that as far as I can tell right now, the ways that you can try to overcome some of that programming, or maybe even just over programming, is through retraining your brain with things like, meditation and breathing and these other, you might think of them as contemplative states, but I really think it has to do with tuning into your own brainwave patterns.
Well, we're going to have to talk about ways to tune into our own brainwave patterns on the other side of a short pause. Susan and I will be back after this commercial break, so don't go away. You're listening to the Mission Evolution Radio Show, coming to you on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com. or www.xzonetvchannel.com, or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
It's hard to listen to the news without realizing we're living in volatile, unprecedented times. Yet never has there been such an opportunity to transform the human condition. As old structures fail, where can we find the guidance to co-create a better way? Find Your Path Home is an ever-evolving, leading-edge information, education, and healing resource center designed to support and guide you on your path to unity and enlightenment. Based on sound principles employed by shaman worldwide, we provide techniques that can support you through the current transitions, offering online shamanic classes, international long-distance shamanic healing sessions, complimentary Mission Evolution radio episodes and Stairway to Heaven TV vignettes, seminars, retreats, and much more. All of this can be found on findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is Mission Evolution Radio, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. Remember, past episodes are available on our website, missionevolution.org. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka, and our special guest this hour is Susan Weinschenk. Her website, theteamw.com. Susan, we were talking about a very interesting phenomenon, and that's how we tend to program conditioned responses to stay safe. And we actually do that personally rather than somebody imposing it on us. So if we have a traumatic event, we put into place checks and balances in our brain that'll prevent us from going back there. And doesn't that add to the stress?
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, it's so interesting because on the one hand, you know, your body and your brain is trying to protect you, right, from something, and this can be true, you know, of trauma that you've had in the past. You know, there's all kinds of things that happen to us in life, and all kinds of conditioned responses we build up. There's the ones that are programmed into us, like, you know, jump if you see a snake, but there's other ones that we program into ourselves, right? Just by things that happen to us. We're not necessarily aware they're there. So we all have all of these conditioned responses, and in a way they developed to help us, but then, you know, they can harden, and then we can get to the point where they're not helping us. They're actually, you know, if not harming us, they're preventing us from living a full life, an anxiety-free life, and so I think, you know, I'm a big fan of, for instance, mindfulness meditation as a technique to change some of that programming.
So how do these habitual behaviors show up in the brain?
Well, there are what's called neural connections in the brain. So there are neurons in the brain, and when one neuron fires, that will trigger another one to fire, and will trigger another one to fire in this chain of firing. And what happens is, if you experience something over and over, and this could be something physical or it could be something mental. I'll give you an example. If I reach for my cell phone every time it buzzes or chirps, right? I am starting this neuron firing, and I'm completing this chain. And once that chain of neurons firing happens again, and then it happens again, and then it happens again, it becomes more likely for that chain to fire. So it becomes a habit. It becomes a conditioned response. Now, if I even think the phone made a chirp, I'm reaching for it before I even realize it, because I've got that neuron pattern established. And this is true. I mean, that's how we established all kinds of, you know, habits. and how we learn all to do. I mean, that's how you learn to play the piano. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but it's just that's the way the neurons work. But this can also work too, not for physical things like playing piano or reaching for your phone, but it could be anxiety or worry, right? So you get anxious about an upcoming trip that you're going on because you got to be on an airplane and whatever, and that makes you anxious. And now, as soon as you start to think about an upcoming trip, which might be a pleasurable experience, but now your neurons fire and the whole anxiety loop comes into play.
So that's the anatomy of PTSD, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and PTSD is very interesting, and it really has its own brain patterns. There's some really great work going on about the one of the things that happens with PTSD if people have a traumatic event in their past is parts of the brain that normally connect and talk to each other stop talking to each other. And that can really, that's especially when you get to some of the more severe kinds of PTSD reactions. That's part of what's going on. And so things that you do that help connect those different parts of the brain can help PTSD. And interestingly, two of those things that the research is showing us is yoga and mindfulness meditation.
Isn't it amazing that these ancient practices are starting to be studied again? How much study is going on, and what all are they showing?
Well, I'm most familiar with the research that's going on with mindfulness meditation more so than necessarily yoga. Amazing research. There's research going on at University of Massachusetts, Massachusetts General Hospital, University of Wisconsin, University of Oregon. And they're showing things such as people who go through even, let's say, the traditional mindfulness-based training, for instance, from John Kabat-Zinn, is a 8-week program. And so people who go through the 8-week program, they have increased white matter in their brain. That's the connective part. So the parts of their brain are connecting better. They have decreased gray matter in areas of the amygdala. Amygdala is where anxiety is processed. So basically, it's reducing anxiety, it's increasing brain connection, it increases focus, and here's the most interesting thing, it turns those genes on and off. Genes that have to do with inflammation in the body, which and most of our chronic diseases, diabetes, heart disease, and so on, arthritis, are all come from inflammation. And there are genes that control that. And people who have learned to do mindfulness meditation, their genes are switching off and on and helping to regulate that inflammation. I find that just amazing.
So do I. I mean, it's like you're talking about the scientific explanation for spontaneous recovery from things.
Yes.
Amazing. Just amazing. And how conscious do you think we can start to become of this, heal thyself sort of thing?
Well, it's interesting. I think that a lot of this happens, I believe that most of what goes on in our brain is unconscious, and the research is bearing that out. I usually use the number like 90%. I don't know if that's exactly right, but most of what's happening in your brain you are not aware of. And what I think is fascinating is you don't have to be aware of it. You can, your brain is I've studied, for instance, the research on creativity, and your brain is so much smarter than your conscious part of it. And so you really don't have to be conscious of everything that's going on to have these wonderful benefits. What you do need to do is do some of these trainings, right? Because it's a habit. You are creating new habits in your brain. Your brain will do it for you. It's going to switch the genes on and off. You don't have to do it consciously. You don't have to sit there and think, I'm now going to take gene number such and such, and I'm going to switch it on.
Thing. We could make a big mess, couldn't we?
We really could.
So it's kind of like driving a car. The car does all sorts of things automatically. You choose where to go. So when you go into your mindfulness meditation, do you kind of set your intent, or is there an intent set within your wishes, your wants, your desires that will influence then what the brain does do when you're in mindfulness meditation?
I don't think so. I mean, it's so interesting. There's the science of creativity. That is definitely there are three networks that work with creativity, and from what we know about that, setting your intention in what's called the executive network is really important for the brain to then run all the simulations and come up with ideas that it does unconsciously. So in that way, if you're trying to change your life, if you're trying to manifest, if you're trying to be creative, I think setting the intention is very, very important. But in terms of what we've been talking about here with mindfulness meditation, really it is formulaic. I liken it more to because it's all about habits. So really, I think it's much more about if you've ever learned to play piano or learned a musical instrument, and you really have to get what's called muscle memory. You got to get your fingers to move a certain way, and you could sit there and look at your fingers forever and give an intent that they're going to move correctly, and they're not going to move correctly just by sitting and looking at them or thinking about them or having an intention. You have to practice, right? It's that neuron firing, and I think the mindfulness meditation is much more like that. So to go through a training to practice being in the present moment, which is what mindfulness meditation is all about, that you're kind of forcing yourself to always come back to the present, not be distracted, back to the present. That retrains your brain. And I don't think the only intention there would be that, I have an intention to learn how to do it. But really, it's just a matter of, okay, follow the process. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. And then let your brain retrain itself.
Do you think that works because by coming back to the present, it seems to me like our conditioning either comes from the past or fear for the future. But if we're in the present, does it pull us out of the kind of conditioned response?
Yes, that's exactly what happens. So you have all these conditioned responses, most of which you're not really aware of. So that when, somebody says something or you see something on the news or you smells something or, whatever it is, you start firing these neuron patterns that take you into, anxiety or depression or tiredness or anger or whatever it is. And by just always coming back to the present, you learn to not be so reactive to everything that's going on around you and not start all those neuron firings automatically. And that leaves you free, I believe, to either create new patterns or to just be there in the present and not always have to react with a conditioned response.
Well, we'll talk more about the present moment in the future, I'm afraid. It's time for a short pause. Susan and I will return to our discussion on the other side of this break. You stay right there. This is Mission Evolution Radio Show on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologist, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
Welcome back. This is the Mission Evolution Radio Show, www.missionevolution.org, bringing the latest tools and information to support the path to enlightenment. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Susan Weinschenk. Her website, theteamw.com. Susan, we were talking about being in the present moment as a way to start to reprogram your brain. And a lot of people, when you think of mindfulness, meditation, or whatever, you think sitting down contemplating your navel for an hour. But what about walking mindfulness meditation? Can't we just engage this periodically, instantaneously throughout the day if we practice it enough?
Well, the goal, I think, of mindfulness meditation is to get to the point where you are doing it all the time, that you've retrained your brain enough so that now you can go about your regular life, whatever it is, washing the dishes, being with the kids, being at work, and not be so reactive and not always be playing these automatic conditioned responses out. So that is absolutely the goal. But in order to get there, it's as though, if you said, look, I'm going to train, to run a marathon. And that's, I'm going to be that fit that I can run a marathon. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to go about my daily life and think about running the marathon, right? It's like, no, you got to go through the training, right? You got to get your muscles strong enough. You have to build up your endurance. You have to get to the point where you are that strong, just all the time. And I think that's what the meditation is, the mindfulness meditation is about, is initially just learning, because it's actually an enormous amount of work to retrain your brain. It really is. You've had how many years, right, of kind of training it the quote wrong way, or at least an unconscious way, and now you're going to retrain it. That's not an easy thing. And we find it takes about 8 weeks to do that, and that's the part at which you really do need to be sitting down and doing it, because it's really hard work. It is really hard work to do. And I teach a course, an 8-week course, at my local yoga studio, and that we do together. I also have an online course as well. But when I bring the group together, I warn them, this is a lot. This is hard. This is a lot of work. This is not fun. It's not fun. And it's worth it. I believe it's worth it. But it's really interesting when you, I tell people, just, close your eyes and try to stay in the present moment, like for 2 minutes.
It sounds so simple, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah, I understand. If we're stuck in conditioned response, though, is evolution even possible?
Evolution, as we know it, from what we know so far on a scientific viewpoint, it is possible. It's very, very slow. It happens in really, really small increments, and it happens primarily based on what's going on in the outside environment. So, that's how it usually works. And so changes are definitely possible, but they don't happen really quickly. If we're talking about, can we speed that up? Can we change the speed at which it happens? It's possible that we can. I'm a. Do you know? Have you read anything about or talked to anyone about the whole idea of uh, the Lamarckian theory and Lamarckian genetics?
Mm-mm.
So this is it's actually pretty controversial. And sometimes when I start talking about it, I think, oh boy, people are going to think I'm really, really out there. But there's actually now real science that's coming in behind it. So many years ago, and I should know the date, I don't. This is about the time that Darwin was doing his work. There was a guy named Lamarck um, who posited the idea that when an organism, an animal, a human, has an experience in their life, they can that experience changes their DNA and they can pass that on to their offspring. And the whole idea of Darwinian evolution is that that doesn't happen. That for instance, if you have a memory that you know uh, of some event, that memory doesn't get passed down to your children, right? That's not how evolution works. But Lamarck was like, just shown to be, it's like nobody would believe him and so on. But now we're starting to get some research to show that there are changes that your experience has. It does change your genes, and you can pass that down. And so I think that the idea and if that's true, that would speed up evolution.
Yeah, and it goes with the indigenous beliefs that what you do affects to the seventh generation.
Yes,
And in both directions. So it's like,
right.
it changes things. And if that's the case, things are changing really fast out there. I think
Yes.
we're being bombarded with more in less time now than any time in history. And I think we're challenged to keep up. Is there a way to reorganize the brain to better meet the new challenges of today?
We're finding out the brain is much more neuroplastic. The term that's used is neuroplasticity. So, and there's some wonderful, wonderful research on this, some great TED Talks on this. So, apparently, much more than we used to think. The brain can take certain areas that we thought were dedicated, for instance, to vision or to hearing, and it can repurpose that. And so people can by sending vibrations to your back. They put a vest on and they send vibrations to your back, and the brain can, within about 20 minutes, change that vibration and realize, oh wait, this isn't a massage I'm getting. This is information coming in, and it's actually auditory information. And then people are, and I'm doing air quotes, hearing, but people who have hearing impairments can hear, and their brain does it automatically. The same is happening with vision. There's devices that are put on the tongue, and signals are sent from a camera to the tongue, and a blind person can start to see. Now they're not seeing exactly the same way we're seeing, but they're seeing enough to navigate the world around them. And this is because their brain is taking the part of the brain that usually handles taste, right? Your taste buds. And it's saying, oh, this doesn't seem like a taste bud data. This seems like visual data, and just switches it. And we were not aware that the brain could be that neuroplastic. And as I said, it happens in about 20 minutes. So of the data coming in, and your brain does the switching. So this is an amazing idea that our brains could change that fast, could reorganize themselves that quickly. And I think I think there's an amazing amount of promise with that we haven't even begun to investigate.
Well, it sounds also like it's kind of an explanation for your a lot of your psychic abilities. People that's extrasensory perception through smell or through sound or through, it might start to explain that.
Yes.
How fascinating is that? How fascinating. So, which must change first, our behavior or our neuroprogramming?
I think they go hand in hand. I don't think you can separate them. I don't think it's really a duality. I think the two really go together, and either can change the other. So your behavior can start to change your brain can start to change your behavior.
So, these squirrel wheels we get on, can we put them in reverse and start having stimulus that will unwind us rather than stimulus that'll wind us up?
Yeah, I think it's not even so much as putting us in reverse as we just get off and
Yeah, like that. Stop the world.
and see something else that's more interesting, and we go and we engage with something else. I think it's a matter of just you can teach yourself to not get on the wheel, and then you can eventually just get rid of the wheel.
How do you see the individual evolving mentally?
You mean individual people? How we're going to evolve over time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, with this process, while we're cooperating with the process, what differences can we expect?
Oh, you mean if you retrain your brain this way?
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. It's in some ways it's very subtle, and then when you stop and think about the changes, then because it happens slowly over time, right? But then when you look back, you kind of remember your old self, and then you're surprised. So being less reactive to what's going on around you. What's interesting is, you've heard you can't change someone else, you can only change yourself, right? But of course, what happens is when you change yourself, then you change your relationships with others. And so it seems as though they're changing, but really it's you that's changing. But you can, I find, personally, and what students have told me is they enjoy life more, they enjoy their relationships more, they get along better with people that they used to not get along well with. People that are difficult leave their lives. Leave them.
Yeah. The game just isn't present anymore.
Yeah.
Well, we need to take another break. Susan and I will be back shortly, so don't you dare go away. You're listening to the Mission Evolution Radio Show on the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. We'll be back.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Welcome back. This is Mission Evolution Radio Show, www.missionevolution.org, bringing the latest developments in an evolving world. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. I always love suggestions from my listeners. Email me at info@missionevolution.org to propose a topic or a guest that's on your mind. I'm sure we'll all enjoy them. Our guest this hour is Susan Weinschenk. Her website, theteamw.com. Susan, we were talking about the changes that the individual can see when they start working with, taking advantage of neuroplasticity and working with meditative techniques. What changes do you think we can expect in a society as the individuals evolve mentally?
Well, I think that this whole idea of not reacting automatically in a conditioned way, in a reptilian brain way, I think that would be so significant to, we probably wouldn't kill each other. We probably wouldn't shoot each other. We probably, we would be more compassionate. One of the things I think that happens when you retrain your brain this way is you just realize that you come to accept. You just come to accept things. It's like, hey, we're all human. We're not perfect. We're all in this together. We all have these programmings and these conditionings, and all we can do is try our best. And that idea of compassion, that idea of understanding, of not reacting automatically, of not reacting in such a personal way, right? When someone lashes out, instead of taking it personally and then lashing back out at them, which I think is what our governments do, right? So I think there are so many things that happen in our society that are not positive, that could be made much better if we just all were not so reactive and all a lot more compassionate. And that's what this retraining does.
Well, it looks like it's going to be a systems buster, though, because aren't are all of our systems designed, from advertising to government to everything, even law enforcement, aren't they designed around using our programmed responses to control us?
In a way they are, but I think that even if you look at law enforcement, law enforcement officers often have to react quickly and react automatically, but a lot of times they're trained to de-escalate. A lot of times they're trained to take it down a notch. We tend to see all the times when there is an automatic reaction or an overreaction and it's not a good situation. But there are probably many more times when they're like, let's calm this down, right? Let's
right.
take
Oh,
back
I've
a
so
step.
totally seen that. Yeah, I've worked with law enforcement a lot, and I see that, just like with your emergency workers. What I was talking about is how the masses are managed by the status quo.
Yeah, it's it in some ways I can see how it would be, to the advantage of people who have power to keep those people who aren't in power, doing things a certain way. But I guess, it's funny. I tend to not always be an optimist. I think because I know too much about human behavior that I tend to get kind of pessimistic about what's going to happen and where we're all headed. But in that regard, I think I'm kind of an optimist. I think that there's enormous power in people becoming more aware of who they are and why they do what they do. And I guess there's a part of me that believes that, if the majority of us um, are filled with compassion and less reactive, that will have inevitably that will have a reaction, and that will become stronger than people who are manipulating and oppressing.
So the change that we're seeing, while it might be chaotic at times, is one of personal empowerment.
I think, I for whatever reason, for many years, I've believed that that's, change comes from each individual.
Mm-hmm.
And until we each become more aware of what's going on, we probably can't have large global change without, majority of the people being aware internally of their own consciousness and their own abilities.
Well, I sure hope it snowballs quick. That's all I can say. What do you think we'll discover next about the brain and neuroscience that we don't already know?
I think that we're gonna learn more about this whole idea of, DNA and gene switching. I think the new research that's coming up on that's starting to emerge about what placebos really are, and what healing really is. I think that research that's now starting to, science is starting to look into that. I think that's exciting. And, I am really looking forward to the point when we can explain with science. So, I'm definitely a science person, right? I mean, I study science, I teach science, I love science. And then there are parts of me that and parts of my life and experiences I've had that I am convinced will have a scientific explanation, but they don't yet, and that kind of bothers me. So, for instance, I'm a Reiki master. Where's the science on that? I have certain types of psychic abilities like precognition. Where's the science on that? So I think we'll find that science, and I am really looking forward to that. I think that's going to be really exciting when we put those pieces together.
I'm so with you. You and I are cut from the same cloth in that. A little bit of science, a little bit of magic, and ultimately they come together, and there is an explanation for these things. Just because we don't have it yet doesn't mean that they aren't valid. And there's a lot of great studies going on out there about it too, isn't there?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoy learning about the research on that.
We're hearing a lot about manifesting and creating our own reality. Is there anything in brain science research that you've read that indicates that this that is tied to the brain science?
Absolutely. I'm so, I delved into the science of creativity, what's we called creativity. And when I learned about that, and there's very specific science on that, and as I was learning about that, I said, "Oh my gosh, this exactly explains how you can manifest your own reality." It is the same thing. So there's definitely a scientific and a brain science explanation of how it works, and also then cues and clues about how to work. Basically, there's this natural way your brain works. And if you understand that, then you understand what you need to do with your intentions, with your actions, with your imagery in order to help the manifestation, because it is the natural way your brain works anyway.
What's the first step to starting to become conscious of this and working with it?
The first step, I learn about the science of creativity. I mean, I even have a course on that goes through the science of creativity. Now, in that course, I don't necessarily talk about manifesting your own reality, and that's the next step. It's one of the courses I have planned to record coming up soon. But if you just learn about the science of creativity, and you'll get it right away. So for instance, you have to be very specific about your intention in terms of the what, but not about the how, because
good point.
you want your unconscious mind, which is the second step, to do the how. You have to, I mean, it's all the thing. Anyone who's ever worked with manifestation, if you read this Brain Science and Creativity, you'll just kind of slap your head and go, duh, of course. But I never really thought about it that way. But you need to set your intention very clearly, and then about the what, and then you need to stop thinking about it and go and do something totally different and just let your brain do its thing, put things together. Then you have to pay attention, though, when ideas bubble up to the surface. That's your unconscious brain coming up with solutions, and then you have to act on them. And so you're going to come up with ideas. You're going to be walking the dog, and all of a sudden you're going to think, maybe I should talk to so-and-so about blah, 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 blah. And that is your brain working on manifesting, and you've got to have pen and paper or cell phone recorder ready to go and record that idea. And then as soon as you can, you have to act on it. So there's, to me, that definitely, there's a science of manifestation, and we understand that. We, meaning the neuroscientists, understand it. I don't know that they call it that. They'll call it the science of creativity, but it's the same thing.
It's a wonderful thing. I call that set your intent and follow your promptings.
Yes,
it's like the yellow brick road, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, we are just about out of time. Tell me real quickly about the brain of the future.
The brain of the future, I think that neuroplasticity is going to be even more. I think our unconscious brain activity will be just as much or even more. And
I'm afraid that's as far as we can go, because we're already out of time.
That's enough.
Susan, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Our guest this hour has been behavioral scientist and the author of How to Get People to Do Stuff, Susan Weinschenk. Her website, theteamw.com. Remember to join our email family to stay abreast of all the exciting new things we have coming up at missionevolution.org. This has been Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Join us next time as the mission continues, bringing information, resources, and support to an evolving world.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net. If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie, natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide.
have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.